All right, guys, welcome back. Ryan here, and today I'm going to be breaking down two sets of sticks for you guys. We have the micro doubles and the compact doubles by Lone Wolf Custom Gear. Now, I use both of these sticks for my primary setups this fall, so we got a lot to unpack here, but I'm going to go through a comparison review. I'm going to give you the pros and cons, and then I'll wrap up with giving you some feedback on which stick might be best for you. Now, one of the main features clearly when it comes down to not just being about the sticks, more importantly is about the functionality and the portability and integration. So when you look at a system versus a pack, and you're carrying sticks separately, and then you have a platform, or you have all these different factors to consider. One of the major benefits to rolling with a set of sticks that pair well with the actual system is already going to be a tip of the cap for me, mainly because of ease of use and just being able to get in and out of the tree clean. On top of that, the other major benefit of running a very streamlined kit is that it's just going to help you with getting in and out of the woods, long treks, or just trying to work through tight spots, brush, anything of that nature. So I constantly, for myself, always examine that when you're mobile hunting, because it's one thing to carry in a lightweight system, but when you start throwing a ton of stuff into it and it just doesn't blend well with the system, it becomes more cumbersome. And I oftentimes will find out that it simply doesn't streamline how efficient I am in the woods. So it's more clunky. So I think in a big proponent of doing reviews, you have to call that out, because it's often something that isn't a spec, right? You can look at weights, you can look at cost, you can look at standoff distance, you can talk about how things bite on a tree, but there isn't many companies in the mobile industry that actually have fine-tuned a system. One of the big questions I think that a lot of users are going to have is, well, they're both double steps, what makes them so different? The big piece of that clearly is really two main categories, and it's going to come down to weight and standoff distance for me, where both of these sticks kind of have some negatives. The other one complements it. So they're very lightweight. They come in at right around a pound, but their standoff distance is one of the worst in its category at 2 7/8 inches, which is pretty tight, especially when you talk about finding a tree and it may or may not have deep grooves in the bark, and you just can't sacrifice foot room on a tree like that when it's already limited. Now, if you want to carry a little bit more weight per stick, the compacts come in at nearly 5 inches in standoff distance. Now, will you have to carry a little bit more weight there? Of course. But the comparison in weights is really dependent on you. So when I look at it, I try to compare if weight is a big factor for you. What's the penalty and what's the difference in weight for a set of two compact sticks versus two micro doubles? So in this case, you can carry two compact sticks, or for the same weight, you can carry 3 micro doubles. So again, it's up to the end user. If you're already carrying in sticks and most of them are a pound and a half, the compacts come in at 1 pound 11 ounces. So when you start talking about compiling weight and you want to remove that out of some of your setup just to reduce it to make you more streamlined, the clear choice from a weight perspective is going to be to jump into the micros. Now the compacts, if you're just two sticking, it's not that big of a deal. Especially if you're using a 3-step removable aider, you can get 8 feet out of each one of those sticks, and you're talking at a hunting height of, minimum to the base of your stand, 15, 16 to 18 feet, depending upon your reach. Now, the other big subjective topic I think that needs to be hit is how the sticks bite. Again, I've talked about specs, weight, whatever. How the stick performs on the tree is one thing that is often overlooked. There's some sticks that perform and do very well and others don't. In this case, you have two different variations of standoffs. Now, what makes the compacts unique is that they pivot. So that's a big benefit when you talk about getting into any tree, whether it's crooked, leaning, you know, it just adapts. And oftentimes when you go to set that stick, that V bracket will almost kind of tend to turn or pivot just a hair to find that least path of resistance and sink in. So one big benefit of the new set of compact doubles is that it has two steps. You know, with the single step design, you had to do the whole left foot, right foot game, and you had to kind of depend on which side you put the single step on, determined, you know, how to get up into the stand or which side the stand had to be on in the tree. With these new compact doubles, that's all removed from the equation. It's very simple. The standoff distance is very large, and with those V brackets, they just perform better for me. So when I talk about how the sticks bite, you know, the clear nod is to the compacts. Now the micros do also bite well, and that's one of the benefits and features on these new micro doubles. Now this metal is a 1/4 inch thick. It is pretty slim, and one of the selling points and features on the Lone Wolf website is that these sticks do flex under load. And what they're stating is that when you set that stick, those bolts almost adapt to the tree, and because it flexes, it just gets in there and bites even more. Now, there's a couple things to consider with that. You know, the standoff distance from bolt to bolt, I'm talking about the section between them. You know, if you get in a really tight, small tree, I'm not saying that I climb flagpoles, but if you're in a tree that has a very narrow gap, those standoff distance hit the outside of it, you know, it's a part of the equation. So it's something to consider. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker for me. Majority of the trees that I climb are basketball shaped to volleyball to beach ball. So, you know, maybe a hair smaller, but the micros have performed well enough for me to use them in a lot of occasions. Now, I think the biggest feature of all that I actually do like and kind of dislike at the same time is their new stick attachment style method. Now, the original V1s have always had kind of that, you know, tabs so you can tie off, but it also included a Versa button. They've eliminated that with these, which also helps with weight. They've kind of streamlined it so it's all one solid piece within the stick. But the big thing for me is just simply being able to grab these off the stand. There's no fuss, there's no moving parts. Plug it on the tree and simply, you know, work the attachment method around it, and you can kind of crisscross that, tie it off with a half hitch, do whatever you want. But they do perform well in the fact that you just grab the stick, you can put it on, and you can go about your business. The thing is with the compacts, they also have this new quick attach system, and it's built in, integrated within the Versa button. So you don't lose the Versa button, and they're using it in a way so that they can, you know, offer you the buckleless straps for both kits. Now, I actually do like the buckleless systems that they have, minus a little bit of wear, but you'll just have to eyeball that throughout the course of the season and see if you need to exchange them out later next year or the following season, whatever. But the main thing that the Versa button gives me is the fact that I can use a 3-step removable aider. So whereas, you know, the micro doubles, they just have the wings on the side, you kind of lose that. So the alternative for, let's say, a micro double is that you just have to run a 3-step aider off the bottom step if you wanted to, you know, maximize your height out of each stick. Now the thing is, with the compacts, using that three-step removable aider, it allows you to just carry one, and then as you progress up the tree, you can kind of carry it with you as you go. Not everybody is a fan of that, but I do like that you don't lose that functionality with that stick. So from an easy use perspective, loss of functionality, you know, you kind of wish this had a button, but I can see why it doesn't. It's just very streamlined stick. So you just have to have an aider set up for each system. I do personally, I just keep the three-step removable with me when I want to use the compacts. And then I have a fixed three-step aider that I use for these sticks, and I just run those purely off the bottom first stick. And then I pair it with 2 additional sticks paired with cable aiders. Speaking of cable aiders, both of these sticks are compatible, so you can use those. I like the style of how the cable aiders work with the compact doubles more so, mainly because there's 2 points of contact on the bottom steps just outside of the standoff bolts, and that cable aider with those 2 points of contact really right there, when you step into it, it's very secure, very firm. You know, the compacts, they have 2 different ways that you can set up the aider. One is just right off the post right at the bottom, and that's a single point of contact. What I like about it is that it does help it stow better, but the negative is it's because it's 1 point of contact that it can swivel. So if you step your foot and you boot into that, if you do pivot off that base when you're climbing, or if your toe box kind of slips out from each side of the tree, it's gonna go with it, I feel like, more because it's on like a pendulum, like a swing, versus 2 main points of contact where you step into that. If you do slide off, I feel like the opposite bolt isn't going to move, you know, and you're gonna have less room for error. Now the other part is with the compacts, you can attach them to the pilot holes that they have drilled out at each wing of their steps. The thought process there is that you run one off the post and then you run one off the step, and then, you know, it has those 2 points of contact. Now there's 2 things on that I'm not a huge fan of. One is just when you do stow it away to pack it up at the end of a hunt, the steps are kind of offset because of the hardware within one of the steps. So just, you know, point of reference there is it's not going to just be as streamlined, and you might just have to mess with that a little bit. If you're carrying more than 2 sticks and you're looking to stack those, you might have some interference. I didn't see a ton of that, but I also didn't like that method of using cable aiders for that stick. So, you know, and the other piece is, you know, it is outside to one edge or the other of the tree. It's not really centered. You know, when you step into a double step here, it's centered, and that weight kind of pulls up through the whole post. With it being offset on the stick on the outside, just the leverage of stepping in it and then having to step up, I'm assuming it's fine. But again, you know, I kind of would rather have that weight pull through the center of the stick, you know, when I'm using aiders. Now let's talk about how the sticks nest. You'll see here on this setup, I just have 2 here. One's paired with a cable aider, the other one's my base stick, but they're paired with these little screw-in nylon bolts, and those go through the back of the stick, and you know, they screw in pretty easily. You can get an Allen key to really hammer them down. Some guys are saying they can finger tight them in, but it's you know, you're not having to pull anything apart. You know, they simply just rest right onto the next one. There's another porthole here where the next nylon bolt or nut would just place into, and they can kind of keep stacking accordingly. So depending if you're carrying 2 sticks or 4 sticks, you just, you know, you would just kind of plug and play. So very simple, very streamlined. I have this on a standard post right now. They do have these little landing pads built into the stand. You'll find them on the platforms as well. And then where these kind of land up top is with 2 here just under where I have them tied off for the backpack straps. So it does feel really press fit. So it's very secure. Now, one thing that I did to alternate mine is that, the new posts on the stands, they have this kind of tab where you can kind of like, you know, tie up your cam buckle strap through it or your bow pull up rope through it. I went to an older version of their original post that didn't have that. I picked one up on Facebook, and what I found out is because this post is more streamlined and completely perpendicular and flat going all the way up to the top, there isn't any interference with it hitting the sticks when I set them in place. So it really bites in better up at the top to make these sticks really secure. So that was one big benefit that I found with this system here. When I was running this versus the tall seat post with the new post where it had a little bit of that interference. Now, there wasn't really much of that interference with the original V1s, and that's because they had a cutout where the next Versa button would kind of plug into the next stick and help with stacking. And then that same hole would plug into the cleat on the post. So, now that that's been removed and I don't think it's in the V2s or the micros anymore, my feedback would be to eliminate that completely on the new posts and just cut them flat, because it's just, I don't know if I would ever use, those tabs for a cam buckle strap or, a bow pull-up rope. Now the compact doubles, they're paired with the same grommet rubber system. There isn't really too much that's changed in that realm. There's some pros and cons to that piece as well, because to really get them tight and secure to the stand, you have to use J-hooks. I'm not a huge fan of J-hooks. Number one, it just requires a little bit more, I wouldn't say like setup time, but you gotta unscrew them on each side, work those out. There's metal to metal contact there. So if you're just looking at using pre-existing equipment, a cam buckle strap, just fastening that right over the top for both sides from the stand, you can hammer that down and go. It's pretty quick. I think it's going to be better on the person just from an ease of use perspective. And J-hooks, they're small. You got to carry them. You got to throw them in your bino harness or in your pocket or whatever, and just still have that on hand to, again, another step to screw those in when you leave. Going into setup time, I kind of hit on that a little bit. You just need more time if you're going to use J-hooks with the system. The compacts are also going to just require a little bit more time, right? Depending if you have 2 or 4 sticks, you got to twist, each standoff, top and bottom every time. You got to open out the steps both times. I get it. It's a part of the process for those sticks. The big benefit to them is that they do pack and lay flush and flat next to the stand. The doubles, there's not much to them. You throw them in the tabs, you throw them on the back, you hit them with the cam buckle strap and you can go. So, you may just have to give yourself 5 minutes or whatever additional time to get set up. For me, I do self-filming and a few other things, and so I always try to get into the tree a little bit earlier to help in the event that I do run compacts. I'm not chasing daylight, and I have enough time to get set up and ready for the hunt. So now that we've covered really, the big stick comparisons, I do want to hit on the micro doubles for a minute. Now, I was able to get a set of these sticks, a first run, this past summer. And typically, I'll get a stick, I'll want to get a review out so that guys can just get the real initial first impressions or whatever and make a determination on what they're going to do and get excited about their season and pick up a stick or whatever. I took these sticks out, and I'm going to cut to a short video here, that I took when I first plugged these on the tree.
Now, clearly having a bolt break is not ideal. This is a first failure that I've ever had using Lone Wolf custom gear products. And with it being a first run, I'm like, man, I don't know about this. This kind of seems off to me. So I made a call. I sent them the footage. I said, hey, this bolt broke, whatever. So they were pretty good about listening and watching the footage back, and we're able to make a pretty quick adjustment by adding coupler bolts to the system. Now the coupler bolts is just really just a screw. It's just longer. It's going to give you more integrity on the bolt, less room for flex or for anything to snap or break. So once I made that call in and they sent out those coupler bolts, I plugged those on to the sticks and was able to run these all year. So I ran these probably 70% of my hunts. It may be like, let's just say 40 hunts, I don't know, somewhere in that range. At my worst, probably 260 pounds, 270 pounds in late season, right? Like I'm 230 right now, but you talk about throwing on late season gear and heavier boots and there's just a lot of additional weight that I would have to carry in late season, and I never had a failure. And I spoke to Lone Wolf on this more recently and said, hey, what was the deal? Did you guys see any additional failures on those bolts? And they hadn't had any reported. So take that with a grain of salt. Like, yes, did it break? Of course, and they did what they could do to resolve it. I think it helps the sticks perform very well. You don't see as much flex in the bolt, and if you're a heavier guy, it'd be something you'd be like, I'm not too sure on that. But with the flex in the sticks and the bolts being reinforced, they did very well for me. And one thing I'll point out is, you may be asking, okay, like, why did you run those sticks so much more than the compact doubles? Clearly put, I just like the streamlined setup for this kit more. I definitely can appreciate the compacts. If you need additional foot room, swap them out. But for me, I wanted something very streamlined, quick. I could plug on the tree, but I also wanted to test them too, right? Like the compacts, I think over the course of Lone Wolf, they've been pretty much proven. Not much has really changed on those, minus the new two-step version they have out this year. But the micros were really appealing, and just saying, like, let me run these sticks through the course of a season and actually see what they're capable of. And I went to the road shows, I checked out the sticks, I stepped on them, I saw the other guys step on them, I watched them flex. I wasn't a huge fan of the stick because I was like, man, I'm a bigger guy. I think these are gonna flex. They might bow over time. They could probably break, and they held up very well. So one thing on these, because of how much they do flex, is I wanted to show you guys, and I have a square here, and this is a true square, and I'm just gonna set these right on the sticks here, and you can see that the square on the sticks after a full season's worth of use are still straight. So yes, is there flex with these sticks? Of course. You're gonna see that throughout the course of this review, but the big thing is that over time, do they bounce right back? What's the deal? I'm not really sure what the metal is that they're using for these, but that was a big thing for me, is just, running them through its paces and seeing what the end result would be. So there's a big benefit to getting after the season review, because that was a big talking point that I wanted to cover, knowing I was going to do a review on these sticks, and seeing them as straight as an arrow as they were since I got them out of the box, I think really goes to show that yes, there's a little bit of flex, but it shouldn't be anything that you should be concerned about with the longevity of the stick bending over time. I think one of the big things here with doing a review and messing around with so much gear and different products within the mobile hunting industry is feedback, you know, like a wish list, if you will. What would I prefer be different about the compacts or the doubles, the micro doubles or the compact doubles? And for the micro double, simply put, it's the standoff distance. It's really the only negative thing that I have on these sticks. I would like them to maybe have the original bolts on the version 1s for these sticks. Now I know these are designed to hit that pound requirement. So if you want to leave these as is, I'm good with that. But maybe on the V2s, you know, you tap those for the bigger bolt. They're already going to be heavier. They basically are the same stick in a way, but you allow the customer to pick and choose, right? Do I want the ultralight, thin, 1 pound stick, or do I want to take a little bit more weight and get a little bit more standoff distance? So I think that's the biggest one. So if you looked at it and they adjusted the V2s to have the original bolts, I think I would be good, because I might actually pick up the V2s because I know they're different if I need a little bit more foot room, but I like how these are streamlined and packed to the stand. They're quick to access on and off and climb. You know, I'd probably pick up both sets. The only pet peeve, is you could say, would be weight. They're a little heavy, 1 pound 11 ounces, but everything else in its category is pretty solid. Now if they could drop the weight on these while maintaining the same standoff distance, and got to like a true 1.5 pound stick, it would be tough to beat. You know, or even maybe a 14 step, just to, you know, reduce the size, reduce the weight a little bit. But at the end of the day, these sticks, in my opinion, outside of a little bit of fiddle factor to get these adjusted here, are a very solid stick if you're in the market for a do-all kind of setup. So you know, these sticks again perform very well. I don't really have any issues outside that they are a tad bit on the heavy side. Now to wrap this up, both sticks perform very well. I think you couldn't go wrong with either option. I think preferences, just simply put, are going to come down to the consumer on which stick might be best suited for their needs. If you're looking for an ultra lightweight setup, the micros are a clear choice. If you want a do-it-all style stick that still packs down fairly well, the compact doubles are a solid choice. So thanks for tuning in. Drop a note down in the comment section. Let me know which stick you're thinking about possibly running, and we'll try to get to those comments for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.